This is The Toss-Up, where we take a look at some of the topics facing the world of sports and then we dive deeper. Whether it's your best friend's fantasy team or the future of college athletics, we're just trying to expand the conversation. We just want to take a look at the topics that keep you tuned in to the beautiful world of sports. Let's rewind 5 years. If I told you in 2013 that by 2018 the Cubs and the Astros would each win the World Series, you'd probably laugh in my face. And rightfully so. Fans hoped it could happen, but the number of those who actually believed is much lower. The MLB is home to a handful of teams that rise and fall quickly, like the Cubs and Astros, and a select few that are consistently relevant for a few years at a time, like, say, the Dodgers and the Red Sox. In terms of predictability, baseball is as hard as it gets. 162 games, followed by a grueling and cold October postseason, makes it impossible to see anything coming. And with this offseason's crazy shuffling around of stars and storylines, 2018 could be the most fun season in a while. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Dugan, your host, and joining me on the panel this week, we've got on the outside a pair of IUS-TV reporters, Dan Black and Michael Tilka. And right in the middle, we've got Jack Grossman, WIUX broadcaster. Gentlemen, are we ready to talk some baseball?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. So there are a handful of free agents still out on the market. It's been a relatively quiet free agency up to this point. It's a little later than usual, rather. When can we expect some of these bigger names to sign, and when can we see them in camp?
I think you look at two of the biggest names, Jake Arrieta and JD Martinez, still unsigned, and no one really knows, specifically Jake Arrieta, whether or not he's going to sign with the Cubs. There's belief that JD Martinez will go to the Red Sox, but of course, nothing's done yet. But I think we should see some deals done probably mid-March, I guess, during spring training at some point. You'd expect it. But I think teams are hesitant on them, specifically because they're both 30 years old, and Jake Arrieta 31. So I feel like teams sort of are worried about paying two 30-year-olds, or in one case 31-year-old, a lot of money, just because if you spend 5 years, $100+ million, you don't know what could happen to them health-wise by year 2 or 3. So I think that's sort of why they haven't been signed, but I still expect them to, one, get a lot of money and two, be signed before opening day.
Also, another big part of that, though, is because of what's conspired throughout the offseason with the MLB teams basically treating the $197 million luxury tax as a salary cap, which it isn't, but that's how what teams are treating it as, which has led to them kind of lowballing free agents. Like, who would have thought Hugh Darvish, the one free agent to finally come off the board, to only be getting $126 million? I guess only, but but people were thinking he'd be more in the David Price range, or Barry Zito going back farther of $220 million. Instead, he's only getting 126. It's a little bit, people think, collusion from the owners that not want to pay players, and also from players trying to hold out for these larger contracts. And what we've seen is the owners winning and getting the smaller deals that, starting with Darvish, and will be starting the pendulum going down with Arrieta, Hosmer, and everyone else that's still out there.
I think Jack hit the nail on the head. I think it comes down to a matter of negotiation and sort of contracts and salaries in that sort of sense. All these players have the talent to play in Major League Baseball. That's not the question. The question is, how much do we want to pay these guys? And obviously it's going to take a little more time to work out those details, but hey, it's the way the business goes.
Now, obviously the Cubs added Yu Darvish. Does that make them the favorites in the National League?
It makes them a favorite, not the favorite, because the Cubs still have a lot of questions in that bullpenning, though they've done a lot of work. Losing Wade Davis really hurts them. Adding Brandon Morrow helps, but he's a guy that's never been a surefire closer before, so there's a little bit of unprovenness to that. And then just some other guys at the back end of the bullpen. Carl Edwards has a good year, but he still's a little unpredictable, struggles with his command some. How good is Pedro Strop going to be? How good is Brian Dunsing, Mike Montgomery going to be again? The bullpen worries me a little bit if I'm the Cubs, and also just Hugh Darvish worries me if I'm the Cubs, because he's a guy who's seen his ERA go up each of the last 3 years. He's only pitched over 180 innings once in the last, well, really in his career, and that was last year, which was helpful. But this is a guy who had Tommy John surgery, has had a bunch of injuries. He's really struggled to stay healthy, and that's something that's interesting when you're giving him $120 million plus for 6 years.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think especially if they can't find a deal with Jake Arrieta, that's going to hurt them a lot because, like you said, Yu Darvish has the injury history. You haven't really seen the consistency, and we haven't really seen all the hype that came around and with him when he first got into league. I can't remember. I think it was like 4 seasons ago or whatever.
2012.
Yeah, so whatever, 6 years ago.
Math is hard.
Yeah, math is hard.
Math is
Right,
very
exactly.
hard.
It's tough.
So I mean, they obviously still have Anthony Rizzo. They still have Chris Bryant. So they still have those big name guys that helped them win a World Series just a couple seasons ago. But nonetheless, I think, one, if they can't sign Jake Arrieta, and two, if Yu Darvish can't live up to that huge contract, they'll still be a favorite, but they won't be that clear-cut favorite like you said.
And I think the team that's challenging them for that clear favorite spot is the team that Darvish just came from, the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're the reigning NL champions. They have some serious firepower, both in the pitching and batting world, where you still have Clayton Kershaw, one of, if not the best pitcher currently in Major League Baseball, and you have a young gun in Cody Bellinger who can just smack the absolute heck out of the ball.
You also got the Washington Nationals, one of the best offenses in the league last season. But also, the Cubs aren't even a surefire to win their division. Milwaukee's gotten a lot better over the offseason, trading for Christian Yelich, signing Lorenzo Cain. They still got to improve their pitching. Their starting rotation is not great. Maybe if they were to sign Arrieta, that would help them with that. But St. Louis is also going to be better. So it's not even a surefire thing the Cubs are going to win their third straight division. But I would really look out for Washington. Of course, they have Bryce Harper. They got Zimmerman, Rendon, Jordan Gonzalez, and the pitching staff with Scherzer and Strasburg. I don't know if there's a better 1-2 punch in baseball than Scherzer and Strasburg. Getting Davey Martinez in, maybe they can actually win a postseason series for once. But Washington's definitely a team to look out for also in the NL.
So we talked about the Cubs. Now we've heard the Nationals and the Dodgers. You have to pick one of the two, Dan. These guys have each made the case for either one. Who do you pick between LA and Washington?
I was looking at it before the show. I 100% think it's Washington that's right up behind them. I'm sorry, Michael.
LA's great too.
No, LA is great too. But one, we've seen Washington these past couple seasons right on the cusp. They're almost like the Capitals, who are also in Washington. They're great in the regular season, but then when they get to the playoffs, it's like a new team. It's like a completely different team. So I think we're finally going to see them break through. And this is a make or break season with them. They got Bryce Harper, who's a free agent next year. They got Daniel Murphy, who's a free agent next year. They have Gio Gonzalez, who's a free agent next year. So those are 3 of their biggest players, specifically Bryce Harper, who's also going to ask for a lot of money. So I think if they can make a deep playoff push, whether it's just getting to the pennant, let alone winning one, I mean, if they can win one, I think they may be able to keep all 3 of them, or at least Bryce Harper. So I think they really have a lot of pressure, and I think they'll be able to actually finally take that next step.
All right, well, right now we're going to cut to break, but coming up after the break, our panel will discuss the other side of the MLB, the American League. So stick with us. Welcome back to the Toss-Up. We're talking MLB and the upcoming season, but before we move on to the American League, let's toss it over to Mary Kate Hamilton for former Hoosiers in the MLB. Mary Kate?
Thanks, Michael. With all this talk about the major leagues and with IU baseball season just around the corner, I thought we could take a look at a few of the former Hoosiers playing in the MLB this year. Of course, we have Kyle Schwarber, Chicago Cubs outfielder and 2016 World Series champion. Schwarber was drafted by the Cubs in the first round as the 4th pick overall in the 2014 draft coming out of Indiana. However, due to a knee injury, he didn't see his first big moment in the major leagues until Game 1 of the 2016 World Series, serving as a designated hitter. Schwarber became the first major league position player in history to get his first hit of the season during the World Series. Next up, we have Sam Travis, first baseman for the Boston Red Sox, who made his debut for the Sox in May of 2017. In his 3rd season at Indiana, he earned the Big Ten Most Outstanding Player of the Year award. In his college tenure, Travis had a walk-to-strikeout ratio of 93 walks and 94 strikeouts in 721 plate appearances. The Red Sox selected Travis in the second round of the 2014 draft, and he has moved through the ranks rather quickly. Travis will definitely be a Hoosier to watch out for this season. And lastly, out of Bloomington, we have Aaron Slegers, a pitcher for the Minnesota Twins. Slegers was selected by the Twins in the 5th round of the 2013 draft and was invited to participate in spring training as a non-roster player in 2017. On August 17, 2017, Slegers made his major league debut for the Twins. It'll be interesting to see what's in store for him in the 2018 season. And there you have it, some familiar names for all you Hoosier fans to look for this season. Now back to you guys.
Thanks, Mary Kate. Now, guys, last year we saw the Twins emerge as a team kind of coming out of nowhere. People kind of thought they would come down from that high they faced midseason, but they didn't really do that. And they came out and they made the playoffs. What are some teams this year that we could see coming out of really nowhere to make the playoffs like the Twins did last year?
I think Jack kind of foreshadowed earlier, but the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that missed out on the playoffs last year, led the NL in total home runs, actually tied for first place. They have some great firepower up there in Wisconsin, and I think they could be one of the teams that sneaks into maybe even the NL Central champion. I know you might not be a fan of that, Jack, but it's a definite possibility to see that happen.
The Brewers were actually good last year, though.
Yeah, that's the weird part.
It's hard to sneak up on people when you led the NL Central for 2/3 of the season, and then you go out and add Yelich and Lorenzo Cain on top of that. I'm thinking more of, there's two teams going back and forth in my mind, the New York Mets and the San Francisco Giants. Both teams ravaged by injuries last year. The Mets' young pitching staff, which we thought was going to be a mainstay in the NL for years to come, just can't stay healthy. I think this might be the year they finally get to do it. They still have Yoenis Cespedes also. Then they bring back Jay Bruce, who was so good for the Indians late last year. I think they'll ride them and the pitching from Syndergaard, Harvey, everyone else. And I think they're not going to beat out Washington for the NL East title, but I think they're going to challenge them and maybe get a wild card spot.
I agree with San Francisco and the Mets, but I really have to agree with Michael here. I think the Brewers really, like you said, they were great
good.
last year, but then they just sort of fell. Yeah,
that's the problem.
But
But they wouldn't be coming out of nowhere.
Right. Well, whatever. But
Tomato,
Eric
tomato.
Thames had a great season last year. Craig Counsell said they got a lot of depth coming into spring training with the pitching staff. So I think those two things, and, Eric Thames specifically has that underdog story. He kind of was out of baseball over in, I think, Korea, then all of a sudden comes back to the MLB last season and just blows up. So I think we can see another season out of that. Obviously, you talked about the all-season additions. So all of that, I think, they got a shot.
Now, Giancarlo Stanton, moving over to the American League, was forced to give up that nice weather down to Miami. But in return, he gets to play for a contender. What does he do for his new team?
I think the biggest thing, I like to equate this move similar to the New Orleans Pelicans in basketball. They had one big, great post player already, and they got a second one in Boogie Cousins. And the Yankees kind of did the same thing. They had this great power hitter in Aaron Judge, and then they went out and got another great power hitter in Giancarlo Stanton. It'll be fascinating to see just how many runs they can produce for this Yankees team.
Yeah, there was one big burning question into the offseason. The Yankees definitely can't hit any more home runs than they did last year. They definitely need to add just more power to their offense. They didn't have enough as it was. But, yeah, it obviously just fills in another gap in the lineup. They have Judge, Gary Sanchez, says Didi Gregorius. This lineup's going to mash all year long. And the good news is because that they have the other role players, it'll work out a little bit better, to say the least, than what the AD and Cousins pairing has done in New Orleans.
Yeah, I can't agree more. It's just going to be a scary lineup, game in and game out. I mean, you look at it, especially specifically Stanton and Judge. It's like, pick your poison. You probably have to pitch around one, but face the other, because you're not going to go back to back and intentionally walk both of them, because then they just put you in a terrible position. So I mean, they're going to be really scary, especially late in the season, especially towards the postseason.
Now, do they take over as the AL favorites, or does that go to defending champion Houston?
I would say they would. I'm just not sold on Aaron Boone.
Yeah.
He's never coached professional baseball in his life, and now you expect him to come in and be the manager of the New York Yankees? That's not exactly a low-profile gig there. I just find it hard to trust Aaron Boone to take a team to a World Series title, but Other than that, they have everything. They have arguably, along with Houston, the best offense in the league. They have the best bullpen in baseball, which they've kept all of the pieces together with that. They have a really good pitching staff. They bring back CC Sabathia for another year. Luis Severino is young and firing. He was third in the Cy Young last year. They have all the pieces. I just don't know if I can trust Aaron Boone.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just, can Aaron Boone sort of emerge and really be he knows the Yankee way. He played for the Yankees, so that's huge for them. He understands the system, but can he handle that pressure, especially now with that addition of Stanton? There's going to be even more pressure for them to not only win the division, but get to a pennant and probably win. I just don't know if he can handle that yet, but like Jack said, they have plenty of pieces to make a run, but so does Houston. And I forget exactly who said it from their team, but someone said that they got even better. I mean, it's the same team basically, but they just feel as a team that they got better, and that's hard to knock confidence, especially after you win a World Series. It's just tough to do.
I think the big thing that sets apart these two teams, they're both fantastic hitting teams, but what sets apart Houston and what sets apart New York is that Houston has played in and won a Game 7 in the World Series. It's hard to replicate that no matter how good of a team you have, and I think the youth and experience that Houston brings to the plate, quite literally, is unrivaled.
I don't know. It's last year we saw in the ALCS they played, and it was literally just whoever was the home team won.
Right.
And so
Literally, it was crazy.
These teams are very even. Yes, Houston got better, but by adding Giancarlo Stanton, I would argue the Yankees got more better than the Astros did, and I would give them the edge in a series.
Yeah, I think it's just honestly going to be a coin toss at the end. I don't see one as really much more of a clear-cut favorite than the other. It's really going to be, I think, one of those situations, who's the hotter team towards the end of the season and into the postseason.
Yeah, and don't forget about Cleveland also.
Yeah.
They had the best record last
Yeah.
year, went to the World Series in 2016, and they lose Bruce, but they bring back a lot of other pieces besides that.
All right, guys, it's time for the lightning round. There is one rule and one rule only. You have to keep your answers under 10 seconds.
Fantastic. I have my watch
You
ready
got it right
here.
there?
I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
Michael's ready. All right, the first question, NL MVP. We'll start with Dan and go around.
NL MVP, I think it's Nolan Arenado. He took a huge step last year, 37 home runs, I think 130 RBIs. Really helped that Rockies team elevate to a new level. I think he's got it.
NL West division rival Paul Goldschmidt, first baseman in Arizona, hit a career-high 36 home runs, had 94 RBIs to go with that. Is going to elevate it even more this year as Arizona waits to get back to the playoffs again.
I'm looking at Goldschmidt as well. We also forgot to mention Arizona in our playoff race, and he's just playing lights out for the Diamondbacks.
All right, other side, AL MVP.
AL MVP, I think it's one of the Yankees. It's either Stanton or Judge. I just don't see anybody having bigger numbers because, like I said, it's gonna be a pick your poison. Pick one to go at, pick the other. Whoever can hit more home runs, I think they're going to be the winner.
Judge smashes home runs, strikes out a lot. That's the typical modern player. Only thing that would hesitate me on that a little bit is if the media gets a little bit too high on him and just tries to start breaking him down the entire season.
I think it's got to be Johnny Boy, Giancarlo Stanton. I think the pinstripes elevate his game, and I think he has a phenomenal season in the Bronx.
All right, now to the mound, NL Cy Young. Who's it going to be?
Noah Syndergaard, 100%. I just think he's going to have a bounce-back season. Even as much as I dislike the Mets as a Phillies fan, he's just so talented. I don't see him. I mean, maybe Kershaw, but I really like Syndergaard this season.
The key for both of those guys is can they stay healthy? I think Kershaw is going to win it this year. He hasn't been healthy enough to win it the past couple of years, even though that's helped him be dominant in the playoffs. I think that he puts it all together this season and continues his dominance as the best pitcher of our generation in baseball.
It's hard to bet against Clayton Kershaw, man. The man just does it all. Clayton Kershaw, LA Dodgers.
All right,
Copying me?
I think you guys know where this is headed. AL Cy Young.
Corey Kluber, one of the better pitchers of the past couple seasons. Everything about him I love, and I think he takes it this season.
Luis Severino, the young fireballer for the Yankees. Only one man threw a fastball, average fastball faster than he did. That was Syndergaard. Threw it over 97 miles an hour all season last year. He's going to have another big year for the Yankees and take the Cy Young.
Not so fast, in the words of Lee Corso, as Chris Sale and the Boston Red Sox get that AL Cy Young Award. Chris Sale, again, had a phenomenal season.
All right. World Series favorite. This is our last question. End it on a bang. World Series favorite. Who do you guys got?
Astros.
Again, a repeat. Okay.
I don't trust Aaron Boone, but I still think the Yankees have too much talent.
I'm going with Dan on this one. I think the Astros retained too much of that talent from the 2017 season, excuse me.
All right, guys, time for last word as we near the end of this discussion. What is your last word, one word, on the upcoming MLB season? Or a couple words. I think it's a little too hard to keep it to
Yeah,
one.
really, yeah.
3 to 5. We'll make it a 3 to 5 rule.
Watch out for the Phillies.
All right,
Don't forget.
just made it in there.
There we go.
A crapshoot. Baseball is highly unpredictable.
Wow, that's a poem, really. That was poetic.
Offense.
Offense.
There you go.
Juice them balls.
Juice 'em.
Juice 'em.
All right, I mean, I agree with all you guys. I think that this season's going to be wildly unpredictable, as it is every year. Like I said earlier, 162 games. It's really impossible to predict injuries. You know, even the best of teams. We saw the Cubs return almost everyone, and then a more reliable closer in Wade Davis last year. And they looked like a worse team pretty much on every front compared to the year before. They didn't start out hot. They didn't really put together a great stretch. So baseball, just as a whole, is unpredictable. And I guess what I would urge everyone to do is just pay attention this year, because they're going to be fireworks galore. I mean, we got so much power up in New York. The Cubs are looking to get back. Cleveland is going to be, I think, one of the better teams in the American League, maybe even the best team in the American League, just because of how dominant that rotation is. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like in the past couple of years, we've seen these teams come out, and we've expected the teams to be in the World Series that ended up being there. This year, like Jack said, it's a crapshoot. Well, that does it for the show this week. Be sure to continue the discussion on our Twitter page at IUSTV Sports and on Facebook at IUSTV Sports. You can always give any suggestions for the show and ask any questions you may have. Toss it up and find out if we'll catch it. We'll see you next time.